Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Campus Consortium's Grant Briefing webinar on student recruiting and application processing. In today's presentation, Dennis Thibault will share how this grant can help you to meet your enrollment goals at affordable pricing to your institution. Our presenters today include Mr. Dennis Thibault, Chief Product Officer at Unified, and Mr. John Wanamaker, Executive Director at Campus Consortium. We will take the questions at the end of today's presentation that have been typed into the chat box or questions pane in your GoToWebinar control panel. Now, without further ado, please allow me to present Mr. Wanamaker and Mr. Thibault. Over to you, John.
I can. Thank you very much, Chris, and thanks everyone for joining us today. I wanted to kick off quickly by just thanking everyone for joining us today and for being a part of the grant briefing webinar on the student recruiting and application processing. As Chris mentioned, I am John Wanamaker. I'm the Executive Director of Campus Consortium. And before we begin, I do want to call out a thank you to our sponsors. The consortium is supported and funded by a series of tech sponsors who you see listed here on the screen. These companies are working to help support broadcasts that we are running on a regular basis. We do a series of Ed Talks on a monthly basis where we are featuring some of the most up-to-date and relevant conversations related to different topics and trends in technology in education. We also are supported by our sponsors and with the publications that we do. We do a series of white paper publications as well as case studies, success stories, and conference presentations. All of that would not be possible without the support of the sponsors such as Unified, Quick Launch, Oracle, Black Belt Help, and Salesforce. On the next slide, I want to give you an overview of the Campus Consortium and give you a sense of how the consortium was founded, how we're organized, and some of the work that we are driven to support. We were founded about 16 years ago. It's a leading, Campus Consortium is a leading nonprofit education association with thousands of members across the globe. We are primarily in higher education institutions, but also in K-12 school districts. The consortium mission is to help members reduce the time, cost, and effort associated with implementing enterprise IT services by leveraging shared IT services, lessons learned, and best practices so that each member can avoid reinventing the wheel when it comes to adopting new education technologies for their institution. On the next slide, we are showing some of the many grants that we are running throughout the year. We run a series of technology grants designed to provide a variety of solutions, products, and services that help institutions implement latest technologies while reducing costs for their institution. Currently, the Open Campus Consortium grants listed here are available and open until the 20th of June. So we encourage you to check out campusconsortium.org, where you can learn more about each of these grants listed here on the slide, and where you can also find an application and submit that for your institution. So again, that's campusconsortium.org, and there's a series of grants open between now and the 20th of this month. I do want to share on the next slide just a couple of quick quotations that we've received from some of our previous grant award winners. Hector Gonzalez shares with us from Southwest Texas Junior College that the consortium the grant has helped him transform the college at various levels. Bart Darrell, who's president of the Kentucky Wesleyan College, shares also with us some of the feedback that related to the impact that a grant has had on their institution. So we're happy to spread the word. We're happy to help institutions embrace new technologies while reducing cost, and hopefully after today's presentation, you'll be encouraged to take the opportunity to complete a grant application and see how a grant could also have impact on your institution. With that said, I do want to now introduce our speaker today, who is Dennis Thibault. Dennis has worked as a CIO at a small college in the Boston area for more than 23 years. He has passion for higher ed that led him to come to work for Unified to lead the effort to develop a new mobile-first student information system. His goal is to provide software solutions to colleges and universities at lower prices and to help reduce the overall cost of higher education today. Dennis is now the Chief Product Officer at our partner company, Unified, and he is with us today to provide a very brief overview of the Unified Admit platform. With that said, I'm going to turn it over to Dennis, and he's going to entertain us and show us some of the student recruiting and application processing platform. Dennis, you ready to roll?
Yes, sir. I'm ready to go. If you just give me control of the screen, I'll be happy to bring up my presentation.
All right, let's do it. Thank you, Dennis.
Absolutely. Please just confirm that you can see my screen, John.
I can.
Okay, great. The Unified product that we're talking about today is our Unified Admit product, which is a complete CRM designed exclusively for higher education. There are certainly other CRMs out there on the market that are very good, very wonderful, high-powered products like Salesforce, for example. Salesforce is a great product for a lot of purposes, and it does take a lot of training and learning to configure it to work in your environment. What we've done is we've essentially taken the best parts of Salesforce that work effectively in higher education and incorporated them into a recruiting and admissions module that will enable you to recruit, manage all of your prospects, convert them to applicants, and then eventually go through the application process, make your final decisions, and they will eventually become students. So that was really our goal, and we wanted to modernize this with a new web-enabled platform that's mobile-first development using newer technologies like microservices and Spring architecture. And I will show you a little bit of the details right at the end to show you what our architecture looks like in case there are any technical people on the call that are interested in that. But what I really want to do today is just go through a couple of the things that I think differentiate the product that we have on the market today from some of the other products out there. First, we start with a role-based dashboard, which you're looking at right now. I happen to be logged in as somebody who happens to have two separate roles. I am a recruiter, so I manage prospects, and I'm also an admissions counselor, so I deal with applications. If you have those departments separated or groups separated within your admissions area, you may give one role to one person and one role to another, in which case the only item that you'd see on the screen is one pertinent to you. So if I'm a recruiter, I would just see the one on the left. If I'm an admissions counselor, I would just see the one on the right. What this is doing is it's telling me exactly what I need to do today. So as an admissions counselor, I have one email I need to send out. I've got some paper mails. I've got some phone calls to make, face-to-face meetings. I've got some checklist items that need to be reviewed that have come in, and I've got some applications that are ready for me to make a decision on. And all of these are filterable and clickable. So if I wanted to do a filter, I could filter, for example, on the different admissions counselors. So in case someone was out today, I could take over and do their tasks for them. Or I could also just filter on a certain area. We happen to have this particular demonstration set up with different groups like adult studies, domestic students, traditional students, School of Medicine, School of Political Science. So you could obviously filter on any of those. All of the filters that you set are saved permanently. We remember them for you, so you don't have to reset them every time you log into the system, which is another one of the differentiators. And all of the items on any of our charts and graphs are clickable. So if I were to click on this, I will go directly to those 5 phone calls that I need to make. I can scroll down on the page in the dashboard and see other kinds of graphs and charts that are available to me. And I can look at my prospects by majors, prospects by location. And just as before, all of these are clickable and filterable. And I have the ability to manage and save all of those. From an admissions perspective, I can look at applicants by location. I can look at my admissions funnel, if you will, by looking at prospects, applicants, and different statuses that they might be in. And we have trending analysis, so you can look at how you're doing this year versus prior years. And all of the widgets that you see on the screen, you can manage. You can add or remove these widgets anytime you want. You can rearrange them on the screen. And everything that you see here will remain exactly as you configure it for as long as you use the system. So you only configure it one time and you're good to go. So that's one of the differentiators between our product and I think some of the others, the ability to get analytics. Here's another one. Notice that it automatically filtered to just people whose first names begin with an AD and last names happen to begin with an ABB. So I just have these two folks right here. I did that to just demonstrate that the filtering that you do is also remembered, so that every time you come back to this page and look at a list of the prospects that you're dealing with, it will remember the ones that you're dealing with and the filter that you last used. Of course, you can change that filter anytime just by clicking on any of these filters. So if I was looking for anybody in the system that happens to be, let's say, from Wyoming, I could just type in Wyoming, if I spell it correctly. Wyoming, there we go. And it will filter on all of my prospects, so it looks like I have 1,600 prospects from Wyoming that I'm looking at. So very, very easy for me to do that. Or I can go back and just look at my ones that begin with an ABV, and I'll get back to my Mr. Abbott and so forth. So that's one of the things that we enable you to do. You can filter on any column that's displayed here, and you can use wildcards, so you can search for the middle of a name, you can search for the beginning of a name. It's handy if you're looking for an email address. So it's very quick to find people that are on the phone. Now, if I happen to not want these particular columns, maybe I'm not interested in the address or attributes associated with this person, but there might be some other fields that I'm interested in, I can just go to Customize Columns and get rid of the fields that I don't want. So I'm going to get rid of contact number, I'm going to get rid of date of birth and calendar type, but I'm going to add their ethnic background and gender. And I simply hit apply. Now I have the ethnic background and gender on the screen, and those other fields are gone. And just like the other dashboard that I showed you, once you set this, it's exactly the way you want it to be permanently. And this applies to every individual user. So every user has the ability to configure their look and feel, what they're looking at, what they see on the screen. They configure it to the way they want it to be to meet their business needs. And what you're seeing here applies to prospects, but the exact same concept applies to applicants. So you do have the ability to do both. Very easy to deal with. And not only that, but I could click on a couple of names here. Let's say I had these three people. Well, maybe I'll go down to this person. These three people I wanted to send an email to. What I could do is I could simply click the email button, or if I wanted to send it as a text message, I could click the text message icon. But I will do an email here really quick. And it shows me that it's going to come from me, and it's going to these three people. I can put in a subject here, and then I can address the message to whoever I want. So I could say, dear, and I could put in their first name. So it's immediately going to go to each individual. So the messages will be individual, and nobody will see the other person's message. They won't be CC. This is not one message going to three people. This will actually be three separate messages with the same text going to three different people. And I could put in my name here, or I could just say the sender's name, and it will automatically pick up the name of the person associated as the recruiter to that particular record. So if I hit send, that's going to actually go out and send those three messages to that person. I haven't got this set up to send emails because it's a test environment, so I'm getting a warning message. And this is to give you an example of what our warning messages would look like. If anything bad happens, anything you don't expect, you're going to get an appropriate message, and you can just click to close that whenever you want. So the prospect system and the application system both work exactly the same. The other one more thing I do want to share, I know we've only got a short time in the presentation for demonstrations, but I wanted to show how easy it is to set up a recruiting plan. And again, the recruiting plan is to convert a prospect to an applicant, and then the application CRM is to convert an applicant from incomplete to completed, so that you can make a decision on it. So the two CRMs work exactly the same, but they're different stages of the admissions cycle. So I have this one here for a science package. I'm going to create one for, let's say, a history package. This would be a message that I would like to send out via email to people who have expressed an interest in history, but I'm going to invite them to our honors program, so I'm only really interested in people who have told me that they're members of the National Honor Society. So all I have to do is click this new rule, and I can give it a title, and we'll call it the history package. Just put that in real quick. And we decide who this is applicable to. In this case, I'm going to just take traditional students. And I'd like this to go out, let's say, 10 days after their record gets started in the system. So I'm going to send out a welcome message immediately when they enter into the system, and maybe 5 days later send them a text message. This message is going to go out 10 days later. And I can either set it up as a phone call for the admissions counselor to make, or an email that will automatically be generated and sent out, face-to-face meeting if I want to invite them to attend one. I could send this out as paper mail, and that will be automatically generated for us to simply print and mail, or I could send it out as a text message. Let's do this one as an email message. So it knows that I need a subject line, so I'll put in a subject. We'll just call this, we'll call it history package. That makes sense. And again, you can write the message and personalize it. This is sort of like a Microsoft Word mail merge. You have all these fields available from the prospects record, and you can put in whatever text you like here. And you do have a little WYSIWYG editor here you can deal with. You can also add attachments. So if I had a nice brochure that I wanted to send out about our history honors program, I could just click here, add that as an attachment, and it would automatically be sent out to them. And again, I can sign it with the name of the person who is assigned as the recruiter by just putting in the wildcard sender name feature. So now I have my message ready to go out. I just need to define a rule for who should get that message. And I have the ability to say, is this an and or an or condition? And I'll just add a new rule. So now I have all the components from the system that I can pick from. In this case, I'm going to take major, and then I have equals, not equals, whatever I want here, and we'll just go with history. Do I have a history major? Yes, I do. History and political science. And I'm going to add another rule. So this rule, remember, I wanted it to go to only history majors who also, so that's an and, also are members of the National Honor Society. So I'm looking for people who have the attribute of National Honor Society. It's as simple as that. Now I can test the rule to see how many prospects are already in my database that would apply to. Looks like it's not going to apply to anybody, so it's a very safe rule for me to apply in my test database. And all I need to do is hit save, and it's done. Now what will happen is that anytime a prospect gets entered into the system, and they've indicated that they are intending to major in history, and they've told me that they're a member of the National Honor Society, they will get that email message automatically 10 days, see the schedule right here, 10 days after they get into the system. So you can imagine that if I go out there and create literally hundreds of these communication tasks, I can customize the communication plan for all of the different programs that I have on campus to deliver text messages, phone calls, email messages, paper mails on a nice scheduled basis, so that I'm continuing to be in fairly constant contact, but not overdoing it, to be able to try to get this prospect to actually apply. And any of the attributes or interest or sports that a person might be interested in, literally any field in the prospect record can be used to generate rules. So you could have things for male students, female students, international students, foreign students, students by major, by minor, by cohort, if you have that information, people that are interested in any sport or just the basketball team or something like that. So the messages could go out from the coaches, whatever you want in order to define this. And this totally automates the delivery mechanism for you. Now, what's also nice about this is that we do allow the prospects through the self-service to go in and make changes to their information anytime they want. So if I were to change my major from history to nursing, the system will automatically adjust my communication plan accordingly and remove the history-related items that have not been sent out yet. Those that have been sent, of course, will be remain in there as history, because they were actually sent. So I do want to maintain that history. But any nursing-related items that they need to get will automatically be attached to their communication plan for you. So you don't have to worry about managing the communication when any change is made to the record, not just the major, literally any change. If I went in there and added an attribute that I didn't have before, and that attribute had any rules associated with it, then that attribute rule communication task would automatically be assigned to my record. So it's really that easy. This works the same for applications. So what happens when a prospect becomes an applicant? And the answer to that question is very simple. As soon as the applicant hits the Apply Now button, the prospect communication plan immediately ends. Any pending items that have not yet been delivered that were scheduled for a future date will automatically be removed, and all the old ones will stay there as historical record. However, a new communication plan will automatically be assigned using the admissions communication plan rules, and those rules are designed to get them to complete their application. So a very different rule structure, but it works exactly with the same concept. Now, this is what a record looks like in the system. So I have all of my information, and I can literally scroll through the entire record and see all the information in here: addresses, phone numbers, demographic information, biographic, academic. Or I can use the quick menu here to just navigate to where I want to go. If I want to go to the attributes section, I can see that this person has chosen the Red Cross and National Honor Society. And if they wanted to, they could just add some more. They could pick some other attributes. Maybe they're involved in student leadership. They could just add that as an additional attribute. They can also tell us information about whether or not they plan to file for financial aid, or if they have already filed financial aid. But what I really wanted to show you in here is the communications section. This is showing things that have already gone out to the student. So these are shown as done. If there were pending tasks that were waiting to be done, they would show up here above these that are done, because they're pending. They still haven't been out yet. So we're showing them in chronological order, in reverse chronological order. So outstanding ones that are still waiting to be delivered would be up above. And it shows me how it was delivered. This was delivered via text message. It shows me the recruiter that sent it out, the date that it was sent out, the date that it was due, and the date that it actually went out. And for historical purposes, I can just open this up at any point, go in and take a look at it and see what it looks like. This is the short message that was in here. It didn't really say much. And you can see that the phone number is assigned. You can see the term that they're coming for, everything that you need to know. And if this were, for example, a phone call that I had made, I could actually put a note in here while I'm talking to the student and say, what's her name? Ayla is excited about coming to college. Excited about starting in the fall. And I just add that note, save the record, and now my note is automatically attached. Anybody else that comes in here to look at this communication plan can just hover over the note and see the note that I attached to the record. So any recruiter can go in here and look at this information. When the applicant applies, the entire application is automatically generated for them by copying all the data from their prospect record into the application and giving them the ability to change whatever is applicable. They can come back and make changes to anything that they like at any time they want until they submit the application. Once they submit the application, it's sort of like filing your taxes. You can't go back and make changes to the academic portion of the application. So if I filed for nursing, I'm sort of stuck with that unless I actually call the admissions department, and the admissions department can make a change to the academic part of the application for me. But I can change anything else on there. I can add more interests, or I can add more attributes, change any of my address information. I can add more biographic or demographic information. So I do have the ability to change or add and update certain parts of the application that would make sense for an applicant to be able to update. Applicants or prospects can also add documents to the system very easily. There's an upload document section. And what we're looking at right now, I failed to mention, is exactly what it would look like for a prospect, although you do have the ability to control some of these fields. So every field that you see on here, I'll just skip up to demographic information here. Let's say you didn't want to call it gender. You had a better name for it than gender. All you'd have to do is go into one place in the database, make a change, and that title would change everywhere throughout the entire application. Maybe a better example would be degree. Instead of calling these degrees, maybe in your case you call them programs, or maybe you call them awards. We don't care what nomenclature or terminology you want to use. As a customer, you have the right, or you should have the right, and we believe that, and that's why we incorporated this. You have the ability to manage any of the fields on the form and change the name globally throughout the entire application with the click of a single button. You also have the ability to control on the forms which fields are mandatory. They have a little asterisk next to them if they're mandatory. Here's a couple that are mandatory. Here's one that's not. If you felt that declaring whether you intend to be full-time or part-time should be mandatory, you simply flag that field as mandatory one place in the database, and then it's mandatory for all prospects. Not only that, but everything that's in a pull-down menu. So if I go to, let's back up to the demographics. If I go to anything that has a pull-down menu like ethnic backgrounds, you can change this list and add or remove and put in whatever you want in the list. What we've done to try to make your life easy is we've used ISO standards, international standards, wherever applicable. If there were no ISO standards available, we used federal guidelines or Department of Education guidelines. So we've pre-populated fields that make sense, but you can go in and change them to whatever you want. Let's take a look at gender, for example. We put in male and female. If you wanted to add transgender or any other category that you wanted to track, it's perfectly fine. You simply go into one place, add that, and you're good to go. Now, one other nice thing that we've done here is with a checklist letter, it's sort of a third communication plan. So I'm just going to describe this. I'm not going to take the time because I know this is a short demo and I'm probably already approaching my time limit on this. But I do want to mention that once you've filed your application, there's a third communication plan that automatically starts. Just like you define the rules for the individual communication items that are going to go out to prospects or to applicants, once they've finished the application and actually applied, we have what we call checklist rules. So you can create as many checklist items as you need. For example, you might want to make sure that for every high school I put into the system, I receive an official transcript. You might require SAT scores, or for an international student, maybe a TOEFL score. You might require a copy of a passport for an international student, and you might require a photo of a student so they could literally click on a selfie. All the student has to do is when they receive the checklist letter, which they will receive on a periodic schedule that you define, all they literally have to do is click on the item that they want to upload. So if there was a message saying that they needed to submit a picture of themselves, all they have to do on their phone is click on that link. It'll take them directly to a place where they can actually upload a picture from their phone and hit save. It's as simple as that. They've submitted the item to you, it's linked to their record, and it's stored in the documents section right down in here. And don't happen to be any right now, but it would be there. I'm sorry, it wouldn't be stored in the documents section, it would actually be stored in the checklist section. So let me go to an applicant, and I'll show you that. So we'll just zip over to an applicant. What I really was getting at here with the checklist letters is that those checklist items are, this one doesn't happen to have any, but if I did, you'd see them listed here. What happens is that when they send in the document, it may be something that you don't have to look at. It depends. You decide whether it's something that needs to be reviewed. If the admissions counselor needs to review it, then the admissions counselor will be notified that a checklist item has arrived. They click on the link, it goes directly to that item. They can view it, take a look at it and say, yep, that looks like a nice picture. And they simply click a button to indicate that that item is now complete, and it will no longer be necessary for the student to do that. It won't show up on their next checklist letter. However, if you realize that they inadvertently sent a picture of their puppy instead of a picture of themselves, then the admissions counselor could put a note in there and say, you had inadvertently submitted the wrong photo, please submit a new one, and change the status back to pending. It'll automatically show up again on their next checklist letter with the explanation of why, and they'll have to resubmit it. So very easy to manage checklist items. So that's really the third part of our communication plan. And of course, the final part is making decisions. So when it's time to make a decision, you have the ability to add decisions, and you can create as many decisions as you want within your institution. Now, there are rules for decisions. In this case, the college has decided to have acceptance, and if you accept a student, they're going to then require a deposit. And they have defined various rules here for different kinds of deposits. Half of the fee was received, the full fee, or just a generic deposit was received. So they can put whatever they want on here. And these different decisions will have different meanings to the system and will actually perform different tasks. So if you have a different ERP system than ours for student information, we can actually take the admitted student and create them within your student information system. So we can do a direct API feed right into your student admission system. So again, I think I've probably gone a little over my limit, John. So I'm going to pause here, and either we can go back to you, or we can ask the audience if there are any specific questions at this time, or if you'd prefer to finish up the presentation and ask questions at the end, I'll leave that up to you.
Sure. Well, thanks for that, Dennis. Actually, we have been getting some questions coming in. So while we have you here in this, at this point, we would like to answer one of these questions. Ask one of these questions. Can we import data from other systems? We're being asked. Can you share some insight into how that's done?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. We definitely allow imports of either prospects or applicants. For example, you may participate with the Common App, or you might purchase applications from a third-party organization such as Royal or some other company, or you might just purchase a list of names from, well, there's a wide range of companies out there that sell names. Basically, we can import any file into the system. It's as simple as mapping the individual fields on the file that you're getting to the fields in our database. Now, there are some little caveats there. Depending on what codes are in that file that you're getting, we may have to build, actually you can do it yourself if you want to, but we could build for you sort of a crosswalk table. So if there's 27 different majors that you have on the Common App, if you've used those exact same codes in our system, then it's a one-to-one match. You don't have to worry about it. It just loads right into the system. But if you have codes XYZ that are coming from the company that you're buying the names from, and in our system you're using codes ABC, then we have to match A to X and B to Y and C to Z. But once we've set up that template for you, then any file that comes in from that organization will automatically feed in for you. We do duplicate checking to ensure that we're not going to put 2 or 3 copies of the same person out there. So if we do find that the person already exists in the database, we'll simply update the information with the latest copy of the information that's coming in through the file. And we do allow any kind of file import. We do have a nice user interface, so you can define these import templates yourself, or we can work with you to provide those templates. Since we've already done a number of them for things like Royal, the Common App, the College Board for SAT scores, you can simply utilize those templates. The only thing you might have to change is the mapping of the codes. So I guess that's a long answer to a short question. The true answer, John, was yes.
All right, very good. Well, thanks for that, Dennis. Next question. Can we view multiple applications or prospect forms for different groups of students?
Yeah, actually, that's quite easy within our system. That's one of the other nice features of the system that I didn't go into during the demo, but we do allow you to configure different kinds of systems. One of the things I didn't really get into in detail was the information right at the beginning of the system when we went to the academic section, and I had this little thing called a calendar type, if I could find it on here. Yeah, it's in here. Anyway, what we do is we basically allow you to divide the groups of students up into any groups you wish. So, for example, one of our customers wanted a very different look and feel for the prospect form and the application form for their adult and graduate studies students versus their traditional students. One of our other schools had multiple, within the university, had multiple schools and wanted different forms for the individual schools. So basically, we allow you to break up the application and run it almost as if it's 3 different systems for the 3 different schools that you have. All the information is stored in the same database, and the roles that you have dictate who can see what. So if you wanted to say only these people can see the School of Nursing and only these people can see the School of Education, you could do that, or you could set the roles up so that everybody could see everyone. But the nice part about splitting them up does make it so that the forms can be personalized for each individual area. I already mentioned that you can control the verbiage on the form, changing the field names if you want to, setting whether they're required or not, setting the values that you can see in the pull-down menus, also whether the field is visible on the form or not. I didn't mention that. So that's how you personalize the forms for the different groups. So literally you could set up the application totally differently for the Division of Adult Studies than for traditional or any breakdown you wish. So again, John, I'm sorry for the long answer, but in short, yes, you can absolutely do that.
Very good. Thank you. Next question. Does the product interface with other products such as Banner?
Yes, absolutely. We know that not everybody is going to want to purchase our entire ERP, which is why we've made it modular. And the Admit module is the first module that we've released, and it does interface directly with other products such as Banner. Basically, what we do is we use the Banner APIs that are readily available to any business partner. And what we do is we push the accepted students into Banner. And I say accepted with sort of tongue-in-cheek because it depends on the institution. Some institutions will create a student record upon acceptance. Others will create a student record only when the deposit is made. So we allow you to configure that, and you decide when the student record is created. Is it when it's accepted, or is it when this deposit arrives? Now, there's also one other benefit that we've done that I think a lot of other schools haven't done, other applications haven't done, and that's that sort of gray area for an admissions department where a student is accepted, you know, they could even be accepted as early as maybe November or December for the fall of the next year. So they've got an early admissions, and the student record is created for that fall term, let's say in the Banner system. Well, who really manages and owns that record during the summer? The student is probably going to be calling the admissions office and telling them, you know, I applied to be biology, I'd really like to be chemistry, can you change my record? And in most applications, if the admissions office changes the application, they can't go and change the student record. We do allow that. We allow you to configure the system, and you give a date for each term, after which you can no longer allow the admissions office to make a change to the record. So let's say the registrar's office doesn't care. You can change it right up till the first day of classes, or maybe the day before classes begin. Then if you do that and you turn that on, then as long as the admissions office changes the application information within that date range, so anytime over the summer, not only is it changed in the application, but we push that change forward right into the student record and make it there as well. Because in most cases, the registrar doesn't care about the record until the term begins, or maybe they don't care until the census date. So you choose that date for each term, and that way you've got a better flow of information and a better way of updating the records to maintain the accuracy of the information during that gray area between the acceptance period and the start of the fall term. So again, probably more information than the customer was interested in, but I think that was an important point to make, John. So sorry about that again.
Not at all. Thanks for the thorough answer. Next question we have is related to number of users. Is there any restriction per contract related to the number of users?
Before I answer that, I'm just going to say thank you all for submitting these questions. A lot of times we do these webinars and people don't submit any questions at all. So I'm very happy that people are interested in the product and submitting questions. So feel free to submit any more if you want to.
Yeah, we've got a couple coming in.
Question. Okay, great. Can you repeat the question? I was babbling and forgot the question.
Not at all. It was a question about is there any restriction related to the number of users on the platform?
No, our licensing model is based on the FTE of your college. So, if you're within a certain range, say you're, 1,500 to, 2,500 students or whatever, you pay one price annually for the license to run the product. We don't care how much data you put into the system. We don't care how many users use the system. The system is running on Amazon Web Services and automatically, dynamically allocates resources as necessary to ensure that you're getting the performance level you need. We're not going to charge you for the amount of storage you have. We're not going to charge you on a per user basis. We don't believe in that. Our mission is really to try to deliver a product that costs less than others on the market, because we're really trying to help reduce the overall cost of education for students. It's sort of our mission as an organization. It's hard to do with technology, but we feel that with the modern technology that we're writing, we're using a different coding technique than what people have done in the past. You look at some of these old systems that have been out there since the 1990s, in many cases, they still have some pieces of it that are running old COBOL code. What we've done is we've written everything with new state-of-the-art technology, incorporating microservices. It really speeds up the development cycle, makes the code all reusable, and it's given us the flexibility to deliver this product at a much lower price than a lot of the other products on the market. So, it sort of all fits into our model. So we're not going to try to charge people on a per user basis. We just don't believe in that. So there is no limit. It is unlimited.
Very good, very good. All right. Well, the next couple of questions are related to Campus Consortium and are related to follow-up from this webinar. So I do have a question here from Keisha, who's asking if we can receive a recording of this session. We'll absolutely, Keisha, be sharing that out with all of the attendees today, both the recording and a copy of the slides that Dennis has been walking us through today. So we will share those out with you. We'll also share Dennis's contact information should you want to be in touch with Dennis directly. Next question we have is around the application process. We want to know exactly what is involved in the application process and what one can expect when being considered for a grant. So the first step in the application process starts with completing the application. Each of you with us today has taken that first step in registering, and next step is completing the application. From that, part of what is required is what we refer to as a letter of intent. So we ask for a letter of intent to come from either the provost or the president of your institution, indicating they support the work and the effort that you're going through in trying to secure the grant, to do the work that you are aiming to complete, and that they understand that part of how you see doing that is by working through the grant process. We also offer the opportunity for you to submit a letter of recommendation from another Campus Consortium member. It is not a requirement, but it is something that the Grant Consideration Committee does take into consideration. So keep in mind, if you know other members of the consortium who'd be willing to ID you as a member and would like to share why they think you would be grant eligible, that is also very helpful for us to have. Throughout the grant consideration process, there are a couple of steps that I do want to review. with everyone. Part of what we do once we receive all the applications is sit down with the committee and review all that we receive. We then start what is referred to as an applicant assessment interview. That interview involves a member of the committee with the grant applicant as well as their invited guest to a conversation for the consortium to learn more about strategic initiatives of the institution, to understand more about the goals the applicant has for the grant and how that aligns with the strategic initiative of the institution, as well as how it aligns with the mission and the purpose of Campus Consortium. Once that conversation has taken place and everyone is in agreement and understanding of a timeline of when said implementation could take place, we do focus on the timeline quite a bit because we want to make sure that any awards that are granted are put into place in a rather timely manner. We don't want to award grants that then sit out unused for 1 to 2 years when they could be going to other institutions and begin having impact on those institutions much sooner. So once we are all on the same page related to mission and timing, another decision is made related to moving the application into the next phase, which is referred to as the tech assessment. That's where we invite one of our technology partners to sit with the team at the institution and do a deep dive of their current tech stack, as well as an overview of some of their capabilities and goals for the grant, and make sure again that the tech alignment is there and that the grant and the recommended technology solution would help address the needs and the desires of the institution. From there, sometime within the next 2 weeks, the grant committee comes together again. We evaluate all of the notes and the feedback from the different interviews we've been doing and the tech assessments we've been doing, and we make a determination around partial or full grants that are going to be awarded and to which institution. We typically notify an institution within 1 to 2 weeks of having gone through the tech assessment, and we aim to move that window to close pretty swiftly in the way that we want to make sure that institutions are aware of what they will be granted and how they can begin going to implement the awards and the solution. From there, we then work with tech teams to identify a timeline and a calendar of when implementation and kickoff and the like can begin. That's a little bit of an overview on both the application process and the consideration phase. And if there are any other questions related to that, we are happy to take those from the audience today. If not, I do want to make everyone aware that we have, again, a series of grants that are open between now and the 20th of June, and welcome you to apply for those in addition to the grant that you're currently exploring with the CRM and student application processing. We also want to announce, in addition to these grants being noted on campusconsortium.org, that we have an upcoming Ed Talk taking place later in the month regarding GDPR, the GDPR compliance, and what that means to higher education institutions and how to get there. We have one of the most world-renowned experts who will be leading that conversation, and we look forward to having you all join us on that. We will be sharing an invitation to that with a follow-up from this conversation, and we will also be sharing out our recording and our slides from today. Without further ado, if there aren't any more questions, I will once again thank our sponsors. I will once again thank Dennis Thibault for being with us and for giving us a terrific overview and walkthrough, and I will thank all of you for taking time out to join us in the conversation today. With that, we will sign off from Campus Consortium and wish you all a great, happy, long holiday weekend. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.